All right, today we're jumping right into a real firestorm where faith, free speech, and politics all collide. The source we're looking at calls it Logos and Liberty, the Catholic debate over Zionism. And let me tell you, this is a story that kicks off with one person getting fired. But you'll see it cracks open a much deeper conflict that has huge implications for all of us. And right at the heart of this thing is Carrie Prejean Buller. She claims her firing from a government commission wasn't just, a simple HR issue. For her, this was a battle over speaking truth to power. And that one single event just lit a match, forcing us all to ask, where exactly is the line between a tough conversation and unacceptable speech?
So, what are the pieces here? What makes this whole thing blow up? Well, you've got a very public firing. You have a really well-respected bishop giving the official story, and then a powerful counteraccusation that this was never about how she acted, but about trying to silence a Catholic point of view.
Okay, so there's obviously a ton of drama on the surface, no doubt about it. But all that is just the tip of the iceberg. This whole blow-up is really just a flashpoint for some much deeper, much trickier questions about faith, about freedom, and about how we're supposed to talk about really difficult things in public. So let's ask it. What is this fight really about?
To really get what's going on, we've got to go back to the very beginning, to the event that kicked this whole thing off.
Okay, the who, what, and when are pretty simple. On one side, you've got Carrie Prejean Buller. On the other, Bishop Robert Barron. The events? Buller gets removed from a presidential commission on religious liberty back in February. But the why? Yeah, that's where the story completely splits in two. And that split leads us right to the core of the whole disagreement. It really just boils down to one simple question. Was she fired for how she was acting, or for what she actually believes? So you've got two totally different stories. On the one hand, Bishop Barron's side says this was all about her conduct. They use phrases like browbeating witnesses and hijacking the meeting. But on the other hand, Buller's defense is that no, she was pushed out because of the content of her questions, which she says come directly from Catholic teaching. And Bishop Barron himself didn't mince words. He came out and said, look, Buller wasn't dismissed for her religious beliefs, but for her behavior. And he called her claim of being a victim simply preposterous. For him, this was cut and dry. It was about her conduct, period. But Buller, in her open letter, sees this completely differently. She basically reframes the whole thing, saying this isn't just about her anymore. It's now about whether Catholics are free to hold and profess what the Church teaches. From her perspective, a really dangerous line was just crossed for religious freedom itself. So look, what's so important to understand here is that this isn't just some he said, she said drama. It's really a proxy war from much bigger debate happening inside Catholicism about the right way to even have a public argument. And this whole debate about how you're supposed to argue brings up this really interesting term used in the source, sewing circle Catholicism. It's a critique, right? It's aimed at a style of debate that critics say cares way more about being polite and not offending anyone than it does about actually getting to the hard truths. And this right here really breaks down those two clashing ideas. On one side, you have the sewing circle approach, all about tone and not making waves. On the other, you've got the logos approach, logos meaning truth or reason, which says, no, you need forceful, substantial debate to defend the truth. And this isn't some new idea. It's a tradition that goes way back to church fathers like Augustine and Jerome. Okay, so this clash of styles, it's not just philosophical. It actually brings us to the absolute core of the argument from the source material, a historical comparison that tries to put this whole modern-day fight into a totally new light. Which, of course, raises this huge question. What is this uncloaked historical parallel? What's this historical example that might be creating a double standard for religious speech right now, in our time? And let me tell you, the answer is, well, it's pretty striking. Here's where it gets really interesting. To make this point about a possible double standard, the analysis goes way back, almost 1,000 years, to Moses Maimonides. Now, we have to be clear, this isn't just some random historical figure. He is one of the most brilliant, most respected, most authoritative rabbis in the entire history of Judaism. And in his most famous work, the Mishneh Torah, Maimonides just comes right out and says it. He wrote that Jesus wanted to be the Messiah and was executed by the court, which is understood to mean the Jewish High Court, the Sanhedrin. This is, a huge theological claim from one of the giants of Jewish thought. So look at this. This slide really puts the central challenge right in front of you. On the left, you have Maimonides' direct statement from the 12th century. On the right, you have the scripture from the New Testament that Bowler said she was afraid to even bring up. The source is asking a really provocative question here. How is it that one is considered classic historical theology from a revered rabbi, while the other is seen as so dangerous today you can't even talk about it? And that's why this historical stuff matters so much, because it shows that this whole fight isn't just some internal Catholic dispute. No, it's about a core American principle that, honestly, affects every single one of us. And what is that principle? Well, it's the First Amendment, of course. The argument is that this entire episode is a major test case for religious liberty and for free speech, two rights that are supposed to be guaranteed for everybody.
So, where does all this leave us? Well, it leaves us with some really big, important questions. Can a religion's sacred texts be labeled as hate speech? Are moral ideas like just war theory supposed to apply to all nations, or just some? And maybe the biggest one, can one group's sensitivities end up creating speech codes for another group? It really all comes down to asking if religious liberty is a two-way street.
And that brings us to the final, challenging idea here. It's a tightrope that every free society has to walk. At what point does the good intention of protecting people from being offended cross a line and start to feel a lot more like policing what people are even allowed to believe?